I received the R5 II on launch day. This thing has been absolutely amazing. I'm impressed in every single way. And I was excited to introduce the R5 to my R7 and to my R6 II. And we can now have a threesome of camera love. We can have a nice reach with the 32 megapixels of the R7. We can have an awesome megapixel and cinema-like features of the R5 II and my R6 II. Sorry. My R6 II. My R6. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. This thing ruined me. And now I can only choose one camera to get rid of. There was no need to have all three of these. And so the R6 II is no longer with me. I told her that we could work it out. We could do it. We can all work together, but she kept being the third wheel. The R7 is looking at me right now, filming me. The R5 II is always in my hands, and the R6 II she just sat on the sidelines. She felt alone. She didn't feel touched. She was jealous of how there's a stacked, beautiful sensor on here, and she just had a flat sensor. I couldn't lie to her anymore. I'm into bodies that are stacked. Like, flat sensors aren't my thing. In the R7, well, she's got a reach, but now I feel bad for her. She's got to watch the R5 II and I all the time. Oh, crap. Shoot. Did I make a mistake? Oh, gosh. I feel sick.
You're a monster.
So I broke up with the R6 II a couple weeks ago, and now I'm just having the nerve to tell you guys now. I'm sorry. It was a hard breakup and made me feel icky inside, and I had some regret. It was difficult. She is beautiful. I love her, and I'll always love her. Right here in my heart and my hard drive, I will have her photos and her memories there. And who knows, maybe one day we'll get back together, or we'll just have a huge casual hookup once in a while, and I'll be able to touch her and touch her buttons. But for now, she's a goner. She's out of here. She's in somebody else's hands, and I hope that that person is enjoying her just the same way I did, and just the same way a lot of you out there are enjoying her as well, touching her buttons, enjoying her low light, her amazing features. So honestly, this video is not about dumping the R6 II. It's really about how awesome a tribute to the R6 II and how great she is, and how most of you should actually still keep it. Don't get rid of it. I will tell you my reasons in just a little bit why I decided to part my ways with her, my true reasons, and the reasons why I think that most of you should be keeping her. But first off, I want to tell you all the great memories I've had with her. She was an amazing camera. Her low light capabilities, her 60 frames per second were so sharp in 4K. I enjoyed it. The C-Log 3 is still awesome. It's just a good camera. The 24 megapixels, it is ideal for most people. And as an architectural photographer that does mostly real estate, it is a file size that makes more sense. And honestly, it makes more sense than this. That's 45 megapixels of the R5 II. It's a no-brainer. And although I love this screen on the R5, and the USR had it as well, and this is the R5 II, and this has it, there was something special about the R6 II having a tangible button, changing the modes to C1, C2, C3, and going into the AV and the manual modes, and just being able to just twist that dial. Where here you have to do it digitally. I have nothing against that, but having that tangible feature is always nice. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the R6 II was actually the very first full frame camera in the EOS R lineup that actually offered unlimited recording. The R7 did, but that was a crop sensor. But when the R6 II came out, it offered unlimited recording with very, very minimal heating, no overheating in 24 or 30, and just very little in 60. You could go for 45 minutes, which is pretty amazing. Also, it was the first full frame to offer the digital hot shoe. So you can actually use something like the Tascam XLR2D or digital connection flashes that use that technology. So that was different too. And the R5 didn't have that. And in my opinion, the R6 II surpasses the R5 I. But unfortunately, the R5 II came back with fury and she was not having it. In all honesty, the R5 II was an accidental purchase in the sense that I was actually not even intending to buy this camera. I am about paying cash for cameras and gear and never going into any kind of debt when buying camera gear. And you should be the same way because nobody should be in debt over toys or gear, or even in business, you shouldn't go into debt. So I have been saving up for about a year to get an R5C. I was planning on having 3 cameras. And so I was going to have the R6 II be my main photography camera along with video. The R7 with its unlimited recording to always be here in the studio, kind of looking at me. And then the R5C on the go where I could do things a little bit longer and shoot in RAW. But right when I was just so close to pulling the trigger and buying the R5C, the R5 Mark II was announced. And having C-Log 2 and unlimited recording and all these features and also having an amazing camera built inside of it kind of just took over the R5C and took over the R6 II. And all of a sudden, this became all of that to me in one. And I wasn't using the R6 II as often as I thought I would, and I just wasn't reaching for it. So when you have a camera that just sits over and over, and you probably will not use it a whole lot in the future, it just depreciates in value. And since I'm not using it, I gotta sell it. There's cameras that I will let sit for a while because of the price. The R7 is one of them. So when I was weighing between the R7 and the R6 II, the R6 II did not make the cut. The R7, because of its crop sensor, does help me do extension with that 32 megapixels, getting that 1.6 crop on some of these lenses, which is great. And I do appreciate that kind of Super 35. It's not a true Super 35, but you know, that Super 35 crop mode for video does look good, in my opinion. You tell me. It's looking at me right now. With the 15 to 35 at, let me just say, at about 21 millimeters right now. So that's what this looks like in the framing. This framing on a full frame would be 35 millimeters. So that is the difference. But I like the look of the R7. And I really didn't need the R6 II, especially since I couldn't match it in C-Log that well. And it just looked so much different. So in my head, I have decided that it made more sense for me to actually invest in a second R5 II for consistency and image quality and video when I'm in the field. So whether I'm set up on a tripod or someone else is filming me, I've got that consistency with it. So I sold it, I put it in my bank account, the money, and I was starting to save again, and I was just going to put it towards an R5 II. But here's the thing. I am not in a rush to buy anything because I've been pretty content with the R7 and the R5 II. And so I think by the time I go to pull the trigger, I'm going to have multiple options. And one of them is going to be the R6 Mark III. The R6 Mark III is probably going to be announced end of this year, possibly January at the latest, and then released shortly after. And that might make more sense for me and for some other people out there that have an R5 II or an R5 and want to complement it with something else. Because the R6 III, I'm assuming, is going to have C-Log 2 is going to have obviously unlimited recording, is going to have a lot of those features that are still in the R5 II, but with the 24 megapixel. Now, if for some reason it doesn't, then I'm just going to buy another R5 II because this thing is awesome. I am assuming that the R6 III is going to have the eye tracking through the viewfinder, just like the R5 II. But if it doesn't line up with all these features, I'm just going to end up getting another R5 II. And that way, if I need a second shooter, I'm at a shoot with a client, I'm getting that consistency of that same look. I do love having low light capabilities of an R6, but I also enjoy the consistency when I'm on set with some of my clients and doing some social media little blitzes, that is consistent on those angles as well. So for those of you who bought the Canon R6 II, do not have buyer's remorse. Do not go to the next greatest and best thing out there. The R6 II is getting to about 2 years old right now. It is amazing. If you are looking at buying it and you haven't bought it yet, now is the time to go to the used market because you can get it pretty low. I've seen it out there for $1,500 or less, and refurbished, I think you can get it around $1,800. For that camera, for unlimited recording, that is amazing. If photography and video wasn't my full-time job, then I probably would just stick with the R6 II and be just happy. But as a full-time videographer, photographer, this is my job. And as a part-time YouTuber, it is good to have other equipment in my hands. And obviously I'm sticking with Canon, so I might as well be doing reviews on these for you guys. I'm not buying them to sell them. I owned the Canon R6 II for 2 years. It's not like I bought it and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to sell it right away. I hang on to my gear for quite a bit unless something comes up that's pretty drastic. But I don't see myself getting rid of this for like 4 years if I'm going to get rid of it. And again, my lenses I've had for years since launch, since 2018, 2019, I've had these RF lenses. Those don't go away. Camera bodies always do. So I hope you're not mad at me. I still love the R6 II. I think it's amazing. We might hook up a few times. Who knows? I might get her back in the future when she's really low in price. She's been around the block a few times and then I'll get her. But for now, it is the R5 II and it is the R7 until, oh man, the R7's watching me. If the R7 II comes out and it is like a Super 35 type sensor and has C-Log 2, yeah, the R7's going bye-bye. I'm totally buying the R7 II. I love that Super 35 look. You tell me though, do you like it? I like full frame as well, but it's good to have both options. By the way, shoot, I shouldn't tell the R7 this, but this does go into a beautiful crop mode and that would get rid of her. Sorry, baby. But what about you? Are you an R5, an R5 II, an R7, or an R6 II kind of person? Obviously, you're watching this channel because you're probably Canon. Maybe you're Sony. If you're Sony and you're watching this, make a comment below. Welcome aboard. I am all about every camera to come over here. I just commit to lenses and then I, date the bodies a lot. And so I just want to enjoy what I got. And don't worry, I'm going to be doing a lot more videos with the R5 II in the next week or two. And even maybe later this week, I'm going to be getting some stuff out that's going to be talking about some of the high-end accessories that I do recommend for not only the R5 II, but it is good with the R6 II, the R7, the R3. This accessory is the best, and I will talk about that next. But until we get to that video, check out these videos that you might have missed already. They're pretty cool.